Welcome in. Another edition of Road to Pimlico. Man, I love these shows. Louie Rabeau, I'm oceanside here in Mediania Alta, Puerto Rico, for all things, but hanging out with three people in the state of Maryland. One of them is Scott Wyckoff. Hasn't been on one of these episodes yet this year, ahead of Preakness 150. Scott, of course, one of the great voices on WBAL there in Baltimore. So glad to have you in. Scott, good evening. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Fantastic that you're in the sun and the fun. We've been having some cold days and nights here, particularly in the morning. I know for everybody training out at Laurel, it has been bitter cold. I was out this morning, I think, when I got into my car to head off to the station, it was 9 degrees, and it just not getting any better. But it's been dry, so it sounds like the track's in good shape, and it should be a good weekend.
For all things track steward talk, we go to Dan Illman of the Maryland Jockey Club. He's director of communications over there. Dan, look, you and I are going to have a great moment later, but I'll ask you first. How's the hotel life? How's Dan Illman doing?
Yeah, it's doing really great. I'm so happy you're in Puerto Rico. I mean, there's really no one more deserving than you. I mean, for all you do for the horse racing industry, for all you do for the business, for all you do for media, you certainly deserve your day in the sun, literally, in Puerto Rico. And Scott's absolutely right. We're freezing here in Maryland, so enjoy.
You're not the only ones. The entire country's freezing except for the territories in the ocean, essentially. Kali Francois, who's from Wisconsin. Does the weather bother you now that you've moved away from Wisconsin, or are you still got that thick Campbell soup for blood?
Yeah, no. Ever since I've spent a winter down in Florida, that Wisconsin, Dan and I have had this conversation. That Wisconsin blood is out of me. I don't go outside. I am a domesticated cat at this point right now. So I stopped getting on horses in the morning. What was it? It was right after Thanksgiving because the weather just went 30 degrees. And I said no. So yeah, I don't go anywhere outside. Not anymore. Want no part of it.
All right. Of course, this series is part of our Road to Pimlico series. If you're new and just joining us for the first time, we look at those preps, start the 2-year-old season, move on to the 3-year-old season ahead of the Preakness Stakes and the Black-Eyed Susan on this show to get you an idea of who will be representing essentially Laurel Park in the Maryland circuit there at the Preakness and at the Black-Eyed Susan. Of course, the last winner to come out of the Tessio. Come on, Scott Wyckoff. It's Preakness 150. You got to be sharp on your trivia right now, right? What was the name of that horse in 1980?
The Tessio. I mean, the Tessio gets more fame for the name, I think, nationally than
it totally does. Yeah. Oh, poor Federico has his name on that thing. That's right. Deputed testimony. We will do this show until there is another deputed testimony, and then we will leave Dan Illman alone. Is essentially my approach to all of these things. So alongside a radio guy, a communications guy, a domesticated cat, Louie Rabeau, another radio guy hanging out with you here on the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Man, how has the current meeting been? Is there biases going on, things that people need to know? Of course, we're doing all the dirt racing right now at Laurel Park. I only asked this question, Dan, because I've been asking it around the country with the different weather conditions, as far as places like Oakland, places like, up in Long Island, those kinds of things. I mean, track playing pretty fair as far as you can tell.
I think for the most part, it's been fair. There have been some days where speed's been good. There have been some days when closers have done well. And of course, you can find out all about this when you go to laurelpark.com/picks and download our free handicapping guide. Every single racing day, we'll have bias information for the entire meet, horses to watch, Kali's picks, the top team's picks, my full card analysis, Will Humphrey's trip notes, free PPs on the site as well. Really a great deal. Thanks for asking.
Sometimes it's that simple, Kali. How do you like having to put up your opinions every day? How's that feel? It's gotta be.
I mean, I have to anyway. So to put it in black and white out there, and meaning I have to stick with my opinions. That's to be determined. So yeah, just I honestly, and talking about Will Humphrey's trips, his little trip tips, that's something that really, really could hold a lot of value out there who are working on these Maryland tracks. If you're playing these tracks, we've got a lot of great stats that Dan provides as well. Keith Fusel will throw in a couple of stats there as well. So a lot on that free handicapping guide that we have for you guys.
And there is
so much information about Maryland. It's stunning. Go ahead, Scott.
I've been hearing a lot from folks. I mean, people have been coming up to me quite a bit asking about how, the transition's been made to the new Maryland Jockey Club. And one thing that a lot of people have mentioned to me is what you guys have been talking about the information. There's so much new information and different resources. And it's funny how people get kind of set in their ways and what they like to look at. And I've had a number of people say to me, said, "Hey, Scott, I'm excited about what I can do ahead of going to the track and getting out there and seeing some of the different things." Like for a long time, it was really difficult to get a sense of trends at Laurel, particularly when you weren't going out to the track on a daily basis. You had to rely basically on what you maybe heard or go back and look at replays and things of that sort. So that's one great thing that the new Maryland Jockey Club has been able to incorporate is this information. And the more information that horse players have, I think it brings them into saying, hey, maybe I'm going to spend more time looking at the races at Laurel. And I think it's been real popular really in this first month of the new Maryland Jockey Club.
All thanks to Dan.
I agree. And my sense of these things, Dan Illman, is that, with sports bettors, they kind of say, all right, 76ers, Knicks, I like the 76ers better than I like the Knicks tonight, whatever it is. Horse players, that's not what they are. They're puzzle solvers, right? They're people that like to, sit down with that form, really look at all the information. They want to hear about biases. They want to hear those things. So kudos to you. This was an immediate ad upon your arrival there in the hotel scape that is Maryland, but also just, I think a nice model, frankly, for other circuits moving forward.
No, I think it would be great if other tracks could give out as much information as possible. I mean, we want you to win. That's something that I think a lot of, novice racing fans and people that haven't gotten into the game, they don't realize. They think they're playing against the house. No. This is pari-mutuel wagering. I'm playing against Kali, and I'm playing against you, Louie. Thankfully, I can make a living doing this, and I'm playing. So we want you to win. We take thankfully, we only take 12% of our late pick 5 and early pick 5. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's a good deal for fans as well. But we want you to win. We want you to have information. We want you to have fun. We want you to solve the puzzle. You put that beautifully. Horse players are puzzle solvers, and it's great when you can solve the New York Times crossword puzzle. You get to say to your friends, "I did it." But here, if you solve the puzzle, you get paid. And you get to make fun of your friend that doesn't get paid. It's great.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I've stood next to co-hosts before with winning tickets. Poor Mike Gandolfo at the Indiana Derby. That comes to mind. Scott Wyckoff, I wanted to have you on because I do want people to know what it is that BAL is going to be doing for Preakness this year. Are we, with your little spot there at the top of the stretch and those kinds of things? I assume the BAL train rolls on. We'll have that show before the Preakness.
Yeah, we will roll on. Big week, of course, Preakness week as they head into the third Saturday in May. We'll lead off with great coverage of the post-position draw. It's so much fun, and looking forward to each year the different things that have evolved out of that and the different players that come to town. And really, that's a fun way to get things going with the draw happening so early now in the week that it really steamrolls that. So our coverage will continue through the week, and then Thursday night we'll do a Preakness preview show beginning at 7:00 after our big news block, which is one of our big listening times on the station, beginning at 7:00. A great way to kind of set the field and get a sense of what I've seen out at the track during the week and some different people we've talked to and some of the themes that are evolving, and kind of get a sense of maybe the people that are embracing the Preakness. It seems that each year people come to Baltimore and you just find this group of horse owners that are just loving what the Preakness is to them. We like to bring that out, and that'll be a part of our program. Also, we're always joined in that show by one of the voices that folks will see on television, both on Friday for Black Eyed Susan Day and then on Saturday for Preakness Day from NBC and Peacock. So that's a lot of fun talking to our friends at NBC. And we'll also continue with our show on Saturday, Preakness Day. Back in the day pre-COVID, we used to be up on the Jockey's Terrace, but when COVID happened, our friends at NBC kind of increased their footprint there. But we've got a great spot, WBAL Radio, right alongside WBAL TV 11. And the neat thing is we're right on the clubhouse turn, and WBAL Radio and WBAL TV are basically on all day long. I'll be doing both radio and TV, but the big radio program that we really look forward to is between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Orioles baseball is a little bit later on in the day, so we'll lead it into that and kind of bring some live races. Always great to hear Dave Rodman on the radio when you're driving around Baltimore and hear Dave's calls of the races. And also always great to have Louie on the airwaves in Baltimore. It'll be kind of with heavy hearts that we'll do the broadcast this year, because it'll be our first in a long time without a great racing voice and Pete Metters, who passed away last month. Pete really enjoyed joining us in his Preakness coverage. Pete grew up a huge horse racing fan. He became known as one of the great standardbred race callers in the country, and really embraced by harness racing, because he really brought harness racing into the mainstream. Pete, a voice of Navy football, also one of the voices of the Washington Nationals. And I really think that harness racing was better because Pete was able to bring them into the mainstream. But Pete loved thoroughbred racing, and he brought to that show just an amazing knowledge. He can look at a program, a racing form, and it goes right there. He looks at it once, he knows exactly what's going on. So it'll be neat to maybe share some memories about Pete, but also to talk about,
for sure,
introduce people to what the new Pimlico is going to be. I mean, Preakness 150 is going to be the last Preakness as we know it at Pimlico, and it's going to be exciting to talk about what we've done in the previous, 149 years for 150, but also looking to the future, because there is so much excitement right now. It's kind of weird. On a daily basis, I drive by Pimlico and just kind of check things out, and you just want to take these snapshots of what it is. And I think for people in Baltimore, the excitement is everyone remembers when Memorial Stadium closed, and there was a lot of people that were sentimental about what Memorial Stadium meant, not only to Baltimore, but to the nation, because of the success the Orioles had through the 60s and 70s and 80s. But then when the realization of Camden Yards came into play, and now with the new Pimlico being built and engineered, and the architecture by some of the same team members that were involved in Camden Yards, I think that's going to be really exciting. Janet Marie Smith, who works with the Los Angeles Dodgers, who did Camden Yards, who helped image the new Fenway differences. It was her idea to put those seats up on the Green Monster. She's done unbelievable things with the Dodgers. She's very involved in what's going to happen at Pimlico. So this re-imaging that's going to catapult from that weekend, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, when people ask me about New Pimlico and what my sort of general thought is, as a guy who's lucky enough to go to the Preakness every year, is I always say, what do you think of where they play baseball there? Oh, it's really nice. Okay, great. What do you think of where the Ravens play? Oh, it's really nice. Okay, same people. Like what are we doing here? Like they're going back to what's tried and tested there in Baltimore. Scott has also figured out, for anyone listening, if you show up Friday night, Black Eyed Susan night, after the race, to Jimmy's Seafood, I will buy your dinner. And so that's something Scott has very much figured out. It's bad for me, but it's very, very good for Jimmy's. Yeah. And
you'll give some winners. It's a great time. I was there last year, a great seminar. I mean, with boots on the ground, to get a live show like that where folks can come to Jimmy's, which is historic now. I mean, you watch any football game, be it on CBS or ESPN, they show the crab cakes coming out of the oven from Jimmy's. It's a great way to get together and meet Louie and the whole gang from Louisville and get some really good tips on what they saw, not only during the day on Friday at Black Eyed Susan Day, but get some ideas of what they're looking forward to. And I think it's a neat way to bring people together. And like you say, you can't beat having a cold one, having some great seafood, and maybe a great Louisville, Kentucky cigar all in one night at Jimmy's Seafood.
That always happens. That's right. Yeah. All right, Scott. Well, I appreciate you very much, buddy. We will see you third Saturday in May, my friend. Sounds like you're going to be in at Keeneland. I already made promises about that as well, so I'll see you for both of those, my buddy.
Fantastic. Tally ho.
Have a good one.
All right. See you.
Love that, man.
The goat. There it is. The goat. You all are surrounded. You don't even know. To have Dave Rodman and Scott Wyckoff in the same horse racing.
Okay,
thing.
maybe we do, Louie, because I'm at the office. I just sent a text to Dan probably 2 hours ago. Dan, was it? I was watching, other Derby and Oaks contenders just doing races. And I sent a text to Dan being like, thank God we have Dave Rodman. What was the text? Do you have the text, Dan? What was it say?
Some other track announcers really makes me appreciate Dave Rodman so much. We're so lucky to have him. And I said one word, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. Not disparaging anyone there. Lots of other good track announcers around. But Dave Rodman,
No,
he's
not
the
at all.
GOAT. It's okay to say
I'm
he's
just
great.
saying,
It's fantastic. No, he's awesome. He's great. He's unbelievable. I say it a lot on this show. His call of the COVID October Preakness with Swiss Skydiver is a top 3 race call I've ever heard. It's not even, and the Philly shows the way, Battle in Baltimore. It's all there. All the elements are there. It is a spectacular call. Go back. You have to find the Maryland Jockey Club feed for that one, of course, as NBC was on site that day for that one. Hey, Dan, the great moment I wanted to have with you is this. We're going to talk late pick 5 at Laurel Park. And I remember there were shows when we started doing this where I didn't even want to talk about the last race because I thought it was offensive to the bettor. And I need to tell you, my friend, and I'm not going to apologize for that because I was right. But today, my friend, I'm going to congratulate y'all because this pick 5 sequence is unbelievable and it is very playable. Your takeout rate is just right. You have all this information out. This is what I'm talking about. This is the future of Maryland racing. If this is, man, I'm really excited because this is the end of this card is really spectacular.
Well, we're really pleased we did it for you.
I assume. All right, there you go. All right. He just drops the mic there. We did it for Louie. I doubt it very much. Callie wasn't. I don't know that Callie was around for those dark days yet, man. I don't know if that's a thing. But anyways, reminder that all of our Road to Pimlico shows are presented by that company right above Callie's head there, AmWager, AmWager.com. So go get the AmWager Edge. It's an online betting platform designed by horse players for horse players. It delivers speed, power, top-tier features like TRUodds and conditional wagering. So whether you're placing a win bet or a complex pick 5, AmWager gives you the tools to help you bet smarter. So visit AmWager.com today. They have a 100% deposit match up to $150 going on right now. You need an edge. You need AmWager. And just had a 20% bonus on the win bets at Laurel Park last Saturday. So I thought that was pretty awesome to see. So let's move straight into that sequence. Starts in race 5. This is an allowance, mile and a 16th on the dirt. 4 and up here for non 2 lifers, essentially. Lots of good options in here in this one. 49K in the kitty here. And Dan, where did you land in race 5?
I think pace makes the race, and I think Derbiness is going to get to the lead in here for Sheldon and Brittany Russell. And I actually like this horse stretching out to around a mile and a 16th. The horse has been running 1-turn miles recently, and I think the pace has been very fast for him internally. You look at the last race, first quarter 24:02, second quarter 23:71, taking pressure as the race got quicker while racing on the outside, eventually makes the lead and the rail and understandably gets tired. I don't think Derbiness has to work nearly as hard to get to the front in this race. That could be all she wrote for this field. Derbiness has burned some money in his career. I want to give him one more chance if he does get to the front. And if the speed doesn't get you from the Russell barn, maybe the closer will. You've got the Stranger, the 4 Cocktails at Noon, trying dirt for the first time. But this horse has a dirt pedigree. I mean, he's a half-to-its Viper who we know here at Laurel Park. That horse is stakes place, going around the ground. Another stakes place horse, Jester Cole's No Joy, was very quick early in that one's career. So I think this horse is bred for dirt, has shown some potential on the turf, and still has some upside. I think those two are logical alternatives to your favorite JB Ness coupled entry.
We do have a coupled entry here, 1 and 1A here, Callie. Of the favorites, I assume people love their coupled entries. They love to bet on those for sure. Will you be using that, or will you be trying to beat it?
Well, I will be using the coupled entry actually, and because I also do know that Jamie Ness usually scratches one of those coupled entries. I have a feeling he's going to keep Strassino in, just coming off of that Parks effort, off of just a little bit of a month break, and came back in a good fashion off of a really wide trip. I just think I understand Dan's angle with Derbiness on the front end. I do think he will appreciate the 2 turns. I just need to see him getting back into that motion off of the 2 turns. So it was a tough race that he had. I think this guy second off of the layoff as well. Sometimes it just depends really on the setup. And I think they're going to be surprised with how much pressure he's going to be getting within that first third of the race. I think while it seems like a lot of these horses are kind of mid-pack horses, I think there's going to be a couple that are breathing down his neck a little bit. I definitely think Virginia City with Xavier Perez on top is going to be making a really strong presence. I think Jamie Rodriguez might try and do an inside-out trip, which sets him to kind of breathe right on Derby-Ness's neck. But on top, actually, who I do, so I go with Straussino, and then I go with War Master. I do go with the coupled entry, just waiting for Jamie Ness. I'm guessing that he's going to be scratching War Master, but who knows? But either way, I'm kind of solid with those two. And I go with Cocktails at Noon for the aforementioned reason that Dan said that this guy is it's Viper. On top of that, Brittany Russell she's clipping at a 30% anyway from the turf to the dirt. Yes, this guy's coming off of a layoff going long, but that's the kind of thing that Brittany Russell does have a strength in.
All right, we move on to race 6. I largely agree with the analysis there, so we'll move on to race 6. For this one, this is another allowance, 6 furlongs. So we'll go from a route to a sprint here. We'll stay sprinting next race in the Black-Eyed Susan Prep in the wide country as well. This one happens to be 6 furlongs on the dirt for 4 and up. Another one. Dan, can you explain to folks who might be watching this who don't know the state bred rules? This is kind of a Maryland bred, Maryland sired. How does this kind of race work? Because you will see different horses with different numbers of wins, that kind of thing.
You will see Maryland bred or sired. And if you read the long condition thing, we could be here for a while. It's like War and Peace. You've never won a state bred, state sired, or state certified race other than maiden claiming, waiver claiming, or starter, and which have not won 2 races other than maiden claiming, waiver claiming, or starter, or which have never won 2 races. So it's a now winners of 2 life, or it's a now winners of 2 other than, or it's a now winners of a state sired. So anybody that's basically Maryland bred or Maryland certified or Maryland sired can compete in this race. And we've got a pretty solid field in here. I think this is one of the more competitive betting races, and I'm very curious to see who Kali likes.
Let's go to Kali first, please.
It's either flash over consistency, and that's always something I find myself, everybody finds themselves kind of going in between. So I take the consistency with Spencer Tiara, with Liz Merriman, Torrealba. I did have the number 4 on top first, just because that was such an impressive run last time out. But now with the weight, and Michael Moore put the weight off on this one. So, I mean, just based on what we saw back in that Parks alone, but this is first off the layoff. We have a bullet work leading in, but Spencer Tiara, I really just liked what I saw out of the grit in that late challenge that this one had coming in. And on top of that, you do have Liz Merriman, who is 8 for 9 in the money from third off of the layoff. She's also, she can be pretty strong with this Aqueduct to Laurel, but 5 for 9, third off of the layoff. This one is being primed just correctly here. Very, very strong.
I'm surprised to see Liz Merriman without a starter so far at the meet there at Laurel Park. Nice to see her name back in the past performances. Do you agree, Dan, with Kali's analysis?
I think Spencer Tiara is certainly a strong contender in this race. I won't be surprised at all if she wins. And I'll probably use her in the pick 5. She's really improved since blinkers were added to the equation. And Kali talked about the most recent race where she beat 2 next out winners. The runner-up came back and earned an 87 Buyer speed figure. So she's been facing good competition. There are a couple of other horses in this race that are interesting. I think the most fascinating horse is the 4, Take the Money Honey, who has 1 race and just ran off the screen. And then was entered, I think, at Monmouth a couple of months later, was a vet scratch, and has not been seen since. So we're getting this horse off of a lengthy layoff. I'm expecting this horse to just show fresh speed off of the layoff. And we'll find out how good she is, because she's going to have to be pretty good to beat this strong field off such a break. If the 4 and the 5 hook up, doesn't Bondiva get a great trip just tracking outside? And she's the kind of horse that I'd like to use. We've had some arguments up in the press box. Spirited arguments. I won't say if they're alcohol-infused arguments. Spirited arguments up in the press box. Some guys will say Bondiva hangs like a chandelier. I will say no. 2 starts back, I think she just got beat by a better horse when it looked like she was shooting up the rail to win. And last time out when she made the lead, she pushed a very fast pace before getting tired. This time around, she lets the other 2 do the dirty work. She tracks, she pounces. No excuses for Bondiva on Saturday.
You heard it here first, people. No excuses on Saturday. Dan Illman, I wanted to ask you very specifically about one horse in this race, and that is the 8 horse on the outside in Dazzy, who won at a 1 1/8 at Aqueduct last out. It comes back here in a 6 furlong sprint. I know you love a good turn back in distance. This is a lot of turn back in distance. Is this purely just a conditions play?
I think that this might be even too much of a turn back in distance. And I'm not going to question Jamie Ness too much. He knows way more about this stuff than I do. But this horse was successful at 1 1/8, as you mentioned last time out, had a very good trip in doing so. Turning back from 1 1/8 to 6 and facing the speeds of the 4 and the 5, isn't there a chance at least that Dazzy's just going to get run way off of her feet in the early portion of this race? Could be 9, 10 lengths out of it. A lot of work to do turning for home going 6 furlongs. Do I think she's the best closer in the race? Yes. Is she going to get the right setup? Just not sure. She was the horse I had the most trouble with.
Yeah, I agree. I saw that one at the end and I thought, oh, great. I got to talk about this horse next. I frankly don't quite know what to do. It just, I mean, that 1 1/8 at Aqueduct too. I mean, just so different than a 6 furlong sprint at Laurel. So I was just surprised to see those back to back. Just caught me off guard as well. Well, great. I think everybody talked about every horse I wanted to hear about. So that's awesome. This episode is for me. I'm learning. Plus this card. I had no idea. But what a great moment for me. Race 7 will be the Black-Eyed Susan Prep here. It is the Wide Country. It's for fillies. 7 furlongs on the dirt here. $100,000. And everybody's 3 years old in this one as well. We see the return of Icona Mama, who has been running not in Maryland, but makes the trip down for the Stites Barn and those connections. At 2-1 from the morning line maker. I got a lot of problems with that guy, but we'll move on from there. Dan, who did you land on in what appears to be either you trust or you spread kind of Wide Country?
Kind of like Onyx 10 right back in here. I know that she got a very good trip last time out when she won the extra heat. She saved ground. The rail opened up. She shot on through. But I really like the way she finished that race off in the manner of a horse that's going to get the 7/8 of a mile with no problem. I think there's speed in this race. There's Icona Mana, there's Field of Roses. There are a couple of others in here that have some early gas. Icona Mama worries me a little bit because when I talked to Flynn Stites earlier this week, and she's very, very talented, she was great in stakes place last year, he said that this weather has altered the training pattern a little bit, and that maybe Icona Mama isn't as fit as he'd like her to be coming into this race. And he said she's so talented it may not matter, but coming off the layoff, having to show inside speed, going 7 off the layoff, not easy, with some other speeds in here. I'm going to take the consistent Onyx 10 to maybe rally from just off of it.
There you go, Kali. He's choosing consistency in this race. Where does Kali Francois go?
I'm really surprised that Dan went with Onyx 10 because that's actually who I go with as well. So I like the fact because I'm looking, I circled back to that effort at the Maryland Juvenile when she was going the 7 furlongs. And it wasn't a bad trip, but it wasn't a great trip that she had. There was just something a little funky about the trip that she had. And I think that if she was placed, she was chasing a little bit in that race. There was a little bit going on in the front end. And in the break, she took a beat to kind of get her feet underneath herself. And I think that kind of put her on the back pedal immediately from the start of that race. So I'm not saying I threw that race out, but it kind of proves that, yes, she did go 2 turns the next race, but that's the kind of Onyx 10 that we kind of understand and know. And then interestingly enough, Gary Cap takes her back to the extra heat, is able to handle that distance from going long to short. So now we kind of get back to that 7 furlongs. I think we're going to see a little bit of an Onyx 10 than what we saw back from Maryland Juvenile filly. So I go 5-4. We also have to include Safe Trust. Dennis Arujo has got this filly figured. She's got it figured out. So obviously in the Maryland Juvenile, which I just mentioned, Onyx 10 was in, she had the better trip. She was pressing the issue against the Nice Caprice for Cal Lynch. Needed some time. She came back. We know that she enjoys an off track anyway. And she's won. She's won after competing on an off track, going on a fast track in her maiden breaking score. So there's not really too much to argue. I do wonder that if she could potentially bounce in that effort a little bit. I didn't love the gallop out. And on top of that, Corrales is 2 for 35 second off of the layoff. So 5-2-4-6. I include Field of Roses for Farrier Rodriguez because they rarely ever team up. And this was a nice win that we saw in that claiming 40 last out.
I think a horse that could be interesting if you wait till post time to bet or close to post time, Ishkara Fire, the 7, 4-1, I think that horse might drift up a little higher than that, maybe a 5-6 to 1 kind of number, just because of the, I don't know, the connection numbers of 10% and those kinds of things. This horse is going to want to come from 3-4 off and try to make that run late. Is there a chance that the shipper and Icona Mama just goes as hard as she can, a bunch of horses try to keep up with her, and then we get a horse in the 7 like Shikara that picks up Shikara Fire, picks up the pieces? To me, I'm going to try to play the race that way. I think that it's going to melt down. I think it's going to get hot on the front. I do think that plays to your top pick though in Onyx 10, because I think that horse is capable of a little more professional run. We don't have to go full bore right now. Let's wait till we get to the top of the stretch to do that. So I think those two are where I'm going to land, but I think the 4 is really interesting in here as well, Kelly.
No, I agree. I think Shikara Fire is rounding into her best form. She showed a lot of ability. And if you look at her big stakes win last year, it was the Maryland Million, right? And didn't she come from like last million lengths out of it? I think she was forced to be kind of closer to the pace than she wanted to be in her first start this year. She's ran on a little bit at the end. She's going to get some pace to run. You could make the argument that she's the best pure closer in this field. Curious to see how much upside she has, but I think the 7 furlong hits her right between the eyes.
All right. The Preakness Prep for the day will be the Miracle Wood. It's for 3-year-olds. Mile. We'll go to a mile and a 16th next month as we get closer to the Tessio. This is for 3-year-olds, of course. $100,000 here on the line. We see Sacred Thunder. And of course, the big news here, Dan, is that Studley Do-Right has opted for the Derby Prep at Turfway Park.
Yeah, I talked to Jerry Robb earlier this week, and he said Studley Do-Right's leaning towards the Battaglia and probably going to run there on Saturday. He's always wanted to try that horse on turf. And, well, I guess if you can't get him on turf, synthetic's the second best thing, and Studley Do-Right drew an interesting inside post position. So with Studley Do-Right out, Sacred Thunder is now the horse to beat. The problem is Sacred Thunder has no luck at all. And guess what? He drew the rail again. And that's not fun for Gary Cap, who I'm sure is just ruining this post position draw. This horse had just a terrible trip last time. You could argue he was the best horse in the spectacular bid. He got locked in behind horses all the way, finally got out in the stretch, and he's just rolling the last 16th of a mile. We'll see what sort of trip he gets in here. I just don't think there's a lot of speed in this race. And if this horse is just sort of locked down last on the rail turning for home, and this turns into a sprint, maybe he finds trouble again at a short price. Pay Billy is an interesting horse to me. I have a feeling he's going to take money because everyone I've talked to likes Pay Billy in this spot. He's won 2 in a row. I loved his race at 6 furlongs, 2 starts back, because he is not a sprinter, and he was still able to stay close to the pace and grinded it out. Loved the way he sprinted home last time out, going the 1-turn mile when he got an easy lead. And I just think he's going to sit right up close to the pace in here. I think the price is right for Pay Billy. And I'm curious to see him take on stakes horses. It's a nice addition of the Miracle Wood. I'm not going to play spoilers or give anything away. I do think the best 3-year-old in Maryland is going to be running this weekend, only on Sunday.
We call that a tease. All right, Kali Francois, do you agree with Dan?
I agree with Dave or Dan on every facet of what he just gave away, because I
also agree with Dave Rodman. I agree. Yes.
I mean, yes,
whatever
also that. But my heart is breaking for Sacred Thunder, because I've just been backing this horse the entire time, and so it's probably going to be the case where I lay off of him and this guy's going to go ahead and sail away. But that's where I land on Pay Billy. I just am as Dan mentioned, I am one of those on the bandwagon that's a huge fan of this guy. So I was just really, really impressed with the way that he did that last time out. Obviously, you see on the black and white that he's winning by 5 lengths going to the lead. Dan already mentioned that he may be sitting off of the pace here today. It's going to be interesting to see how that break goes, because as far as looking at the other, potential speed that we have, I honestly, we're sticking around to this 8 furlong distance. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy ended up inheriting the lead again and just kind of does a little bit of a repeat from last time out. Now he will have these horses to contend with, coming down on him. He's not, if he wins, I'm going to be hard pressed to say he'll be winning by 5, because you see horses like Crab Daddy who are just going to be sitting right behind him, and even all the hard ways underneath. But you've Barbadian Runner in the spectacular bid. So that's where I do go 5-1-3-2 here. I think with Studley Do Right Studley Do Right's going to be a scratch. Sorry. So I go 5-1-2-4. I just think it's going to be interesting to see what Crab Daddy shows against this group here today. But yeah, Pay Billy, I'm a huge fan. I don't have a lot of, doubts about him, let's say. But I do like that you stick with Sacred Thunder, Dan.
Louie is going to be this is going to be a jockey's race.
Yeah.
I really do think so. It's a 1-turn mile. It's a quirky distance. There's not a lot of speed in here. I think Crab Daddy's going to try to show some speed, maybe Pay Billy, but I don't see them going very fast in here. So I'd like to see a jockey get aggressive. Maybe Raul Magnon, Pay Billy decides to go because this horse will stay.
Right. I wouldn't be. I'm gonna say that I won't be surprised at all if Raul just honestly goes for it. Raul's mentality. He's gonna see what's going on this form. I really do think he's gonna gun for it here.
Any chance, Dan, my guy Crab Daddy gets this done? I mean, any chance, or do we find out
I think there's a very good chance the Crab Daddy gets it.
All right, okay.
The horse has done nothing wrong. Linda Albert put the blinkers on last time out, and you saw in the spectacular bid. He was a little eager that first quarter mile. He was kind of real sharp, and that pleased Linda because this horse, she said, was lollygagging in his first few races, just at the back of the pack and wouldn't get into it until late. Here, he was fresh. He was sharp out of the gate. He had to go fast, and he was still digging in very gamely. I think there's a chance he gets a much easier pace situation this time around. I think he's either 1-2 turning into that long stretch.
There you go. All right. Well, that is the Miracle Wood. No points on this. No points on this path, but plenty of hype heading in to the Preakness for sure. Another great race to close out the pick 5 is a maiden special weight at the end of the card. Here for 3-year-old fillies, it's a 6 furlong sprint on the dirt here. A fair number of first-time starters here as well. Dan, I think we have to go to you because this is a maiden race, and this is what you write books, brother. You got DVDs. This is a thing. Go, Dan. Go.
It's back in the back, and I remember they used to have DVDs. It's now
I'm not even making fun of you because I like DVDs too.
It's now like in a time box somewhere, buried for the aliens.
Allie does not know what a DVD is. It's okay.
I actually have I still have a stack of old DVDs that I have in my apartment. Yeah. You'd be surprised.
I would have lost that bet badly. All right. Where does Dan Illman in the closer here on Saturday?
Arena is Fire. The number 4 is an interesting horse for Gary Capin here, who does very, very well with first-time starters. I got 6 for the last 15 with first-time starters on dirt and a 244 ROI. This horse, may not have that black type pedigree, but is by a strong debut sire in Blofeld. The dam won on dirt. The third dam was a Group 1 winner. And I just looked at that most recent work. She worked on February the 18th and worked the same exact time as Gary Cap's veteran mare Intrepid Dream, who's a nice older horse capable of running buyers in the high 80s. And I just wonder, maybe they worked in company. So we've got a high percentage trainer, a solid pedigree, a good work tab, and maybe because Divine Works just took so much money in both starts, one at Saratoga for Michael Trombetta, who's not known for winning first time out, and then coming right back in a stakes race, and maybe that horse will take a lot of money one more time. I'm just curious to see what we get for Rena Aspire.
I have her on top. I'm surprised at this, but Dan and I came to the same opinion, Callie. That horse will not finish last. Who do you have finishing first?
I'm everybody, all 4s all across the board here. I go with Rena Aspire as well. I mean, come on, you got Gary Cap, who's 9 for 14 in the money. First start as of late. Listen, this one, just knowing, understanding how Gary's barn works, you look at those works, and to me that says everything. So I fully see this one just sailing to the front end. I have a feeling this one is going to be something special. Underneath, I go with the 6 High Path. This is a first-time starter for Brittany and Sheldon Russell, something we can always just kind of depend on here. The dam was well enough in her first couple of starts, so I'm just you gotta play off of the trainers here a little bit, and that's what I do here. And especially since Sheldon's going to be to the outside of Gary's horse, she's just going to be able to play off of that all day. He fully expects Gary's horse to go up front, and I have a feeling, this one has been up at Fair Hill. Interesting that once this one gets over here to Laurel, we see just okay works. They, in that last work on February 15th, they tried to really tighten the notches on this one. So I don't see this one blasting out of the gate with a ton of speed. I see this one just sitting right off of that because everybody's going to be going off of the 4 here. I feel like the 4 is going to be taking plenty of money just on the outside. Mo Hype for Jerry Robb, Xavier Perez. When you're able to do it on the mud, that always kind of gives me a little bit of confidence. We're second off of the layoff, which while Jerry has been a bit warm, I'm not going to say cold, just warm. I will say second off the layoff lately, they've been doing very, very well at that. So they're going to try and play that outside speed. I do think that the 4 will end up being quicker, but just this is a speed that's going to last for third. That's how I see that playing out. And then the number 3 on the inside, Farrier. I love, his stats are okay. He's 5 for 10 in the money as of late from Charlestown to Laurel. But again, this is a Farrier, typical way Farrier does things. He'll do these first couple of races and not necessarily treat them like a schooling race, but this might be a bigger individual who just ends up needing a bigger track. But I've seen this time and time again with the Charlestown to Laurel with these first, second, third time starters. And usually they're at least hitting the board with these types.
4.5 furlongs at Charlestown is 3 turns. I did that for you, Paul. I hope you're watching. All right. Well, Dan Illman, Kali Francois. Dan, please do tell everybody again, if they're joining late, where they can find all the free information, the website, all that stuff.
laurelpark.com/picks. You'll be able to download the free handicapping guide. Again, top picks from the team, including Kali and myself, and the aforementioned Dave Rodman, of course. My full card analysis. We've got hot trainer stats for the day. We've got horses to watch down the road from the team. We've got Will Humphrey's trip notes and horses to watch as well. Also on the homepage, we've got free daily racing forms DRP programs. It's a pretty good deal at laurelpark.com, and you're going to want to head over to our YouTube channel where you get to watch all the replays, hands and head-ons, all in one shot. They're all free replays. They're all looking good, just like me.
Well, there you go. He's the face of the operation, Dan Illman. She's the brains of the operation, Kali Francois. And I'm Louie Rebeau. I want to thank both of you for joining me here. We'll see you in a month. Kali, can you already name the Black-Eyed Susan prep for next month?
No. I'm watching. My brain is blank. Sorry, Dan, take it away. That's what you get for calling me the brains of the operation.
That's why I did it.
Yeah, I know. That's why you did it.
And it paid off too. Oh, I'm so proud of that one.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You should be.
Well, Louie, enlighten us. What is the next stakes race for the Phillies?
Which one? Which race? What are we looking for?
What's next Black-Eyed Susan prep in Maryland?
I have no idea.
Thank you. Okay.
I've been doing these for 4 years. I should know this. What am I doing? I was thinking about that. I'm like,
get Wyckoff back on.
Get Wyckoff back. You should host this show, man. It'd be a lot more fun. All right. Well, he's Dan. She's Kali. Kali and I are gonna. Kali. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Is it the Beyond the Wire?
Yes, it is.
It's Beyond the Wire.
Excellent.
Yeah.
See, Louie. Yeah. What do you have to say now, Big Shot? Nothing. Right. Exactly. End the show, Zach. Let's go home.
I'm just gonna get Dan off the screen. I think that's a lot easier than doing that. How are you, Kali Francois?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing great. All right, I'll let the Maryland folks go. You've been here for 43 minutes and 16 seconds, and Dan a lot longer than that because he's in a hotel and has nothing else to do. So, all right, bye everybody. Bye, Maryland folks.
Bye.
All right. A reminder too, as we move along. Check out our friends over at AmWager. AmWager.com, of course, the promo there right now, 100% sign-up bonus up to $150. So go in dollar for dollar match right now with our friends over at AmWager. Really a beautiful site if you haven't been over there before. Got you covered for every single track on the Maryland circuit as well. All right, for all the folks in Maryland, my name's Louie Rebeau. We'll do this next month. By then, I will know the names of the preps. This has been the Horse Racing Happy Hour.